Welcome to The Critique.
Hello.
Today, we're looking at a plan for quite an ambitious video, an hour-long, funny, personalized take on current macro market dynamics, focused on crypto's role within things like the repo market and, well, global financial plumbing.
Yeah, it's definitely ambitious. Deep stuff, too. Fed policy corridor, IORB versus SOFR, the standing repo facility. The author clearly knows their material.
Absolutely. Mastery of the topic isn't in question.
But, that complexity, plus the goal of being fast, funny, and an hour long, that immediately flags a potential issue, right?
It really does. And that's where we should probably start. Let's call our first point, the hour-long attention deficit.
Okay, so the core idea here is that the planned 1-hour runtime, it just seems fundamentally mismatched with the intense focus needed for this kind of material.
Exactly. I mean, you could argue the audience is sophisticated, right? They follow this stuff.
Sure, they might be, but can anyone really sustain peak attention for 60 minutes on the nitty-gritty of repo mechanics, even with humor?
That's the weakness, I think. These topics, the Fed's corridor mechanics, why there's a spread between repo and IORB, hinting at reserve scarcity, that little SRF test recently, they are inherently dense.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to maintain high energy, sarcasm, and speed for an hour covering that level of detail, it's just going to lead to fatigue. It actually works against the goal of being attention-grabbing.
Yeah. Complexity is the enemy of sustained focus, isn't it? Doesn't matter how fast you talk if people's brains are overheating.
Right. We're not talking about just data points. It's the plumbing, the mechanics. That takes real mental effort to follow.
And if the host is being rapid-fire and witty while explaining something super nuanced, like why banks aren't chasing that 14 basis point pickup in the repo market,
People will just zone out. They'll lose the thread.
exactly. The core argument gets lost.
So the suggestion is, well, simple in concept but maybe tough in practice. You've got to ruthlessly narrow the scope.
Okay.
Instead of this huge overview touching everything from deficits to Bitcoin's market cap pivot, do a deep dive on one central conflict.
And use the other stuff as supporting evidence?
Precisely. And aim for, say, 20, maybe 30 minutes max.
Yeah, I agree. It needs to be more surgical, less like an encyclopedia entry read aloud.
And the material itself points to a great central plot already, doesn't it?
You mean the reserve scarcity thing?
Yeah. That spread between the repo rate and IORB, the one banks are ignoring. That's your mystery. That's the story.
Okay, so hone in on that. Make that the main narrative thread.
Use it as the core plot point. And maybe frame the SRF usage discussion as the climax, the stress test of that system.
Right. And then things like long-term QE/QT debates or the whole institutional view on Bitcoin hitting $1 trillion.
Those become separate segments, or maybe follow-up videos. The depth here is great. It really is.
But it needs room to breathe.
Exactly. 60 minutes just suffocates the core message.
Okay, so if we fix the structure, trim the length, the next challenge is maintaining the right kind of energy, the right tone.
Which brings us neatly to our second critique. Let's call this one the paradox of sarcastic neutrality.
Ah, yes. The request was for humorous, witty, and sarcastic, but also absolutely neutral without any preconceived stance.
That's a contradiction, right? At a fundamental level. It risks confusing people and honestly damaging the financial credibility.
Because sarcasm isn't neutral. It inherently carries a judgment, a stance.
Totally. If you apply that sarcastic wit to, say, the U.S. national debt, calling it a 16-year hangover or whatever, you're already showing a bias.
Okay, but what about applying it to the mechanics? Is there a risk there too? If the host is sarcastic about how reserves work, for instance.
That's the key weakness, I think. If you start being sarcastic when explaining really critical concepts, like how interbank settlement actually functions, or how the Fed uses the discount window and IORB to manage that policy corridor,
The complexity's already high. You can't really be sarcastic about, say, the $7.4 trillion sitting in money market funds. You just need to explain what it is, what it means.
Exactly. So the suggestion here is pretty clear. The writer needs to make a conscious choice. Is this satirical analysis or is it objective reporting with some personality?
You can't really have it both ways effectively.
No. If the goal is neutrality or at least objective reporting, then the humor needs refinement. It should be sharp, observational, but focused on behavior or concepts, not the underlying mechanics or data.
Okay, so maybe be witty about how banks have 2019 PTSD regarding reserves.
Yes, or describe abstract things with flair. Call that huge cash pile money waiting for an exit strategy. Or use the analogy of Bitcoin reaching digital commodity status. That works.
And this is the concrete example part, avoid sarcasm when explaining the how.
Definitely. The data points, the 4.15% IORB floor, the 4.25% discount window ceiling, the 5.9% deficit to GDP ratio, those need to be delivered straight, clear, unambiguous.
The host needs to be the credible expert first, entertainer second.
Absolutely. Target the wit at the actors or the situation, not the mechanism. Otherwise, the audience won't trust the explanation of the mechanism itself.
And if they don't trust the mechanics, they won't trust the broader analysis.
Precisely. Which kind of leads into our third point, actually, about some of the specific execution requirements.
Ah, right. The forced elements. Let's call this the challenge of forced storytelling.
Yeah. The script specifies some pretty rigid requirements, placing the sponsor read at a very specific point, generating golden sentences in every paragraph.
Which sounds unnatural.
It really interferes with the organic flow. It hinders the host's ability to just tell the story effectively.
That sponsor placement seems particularly tricky. The weakness there is dropping an ad right after the 30-second summary.
Just when you need to pull the audience into the narrative.
Exactly. It completely breaks the momentum. And this idea of manufacturing explosive points or golden sentences on demand, that often just sounds forced, doesn't it? Strained?
It does. It rarely lands with the impact you want when it feels mandated. The host should sound like a guide, not like they're reading marketing copy points.
So, the suggestion? Let the material do the work.
Pretty much. Allow the inherent conflicts, which are strong in this material, to naturally create those explosive points.
And the sponsor read?
Integrate it more smoothly. Find a natural pause or transition between two distinct topics.
Okay, like maybe moving from discussing the Fed's policy rates, the system's plumbing,
Right.
to then talking about institutional asset allocation strategies, how investors are reacting.
And slot the ad read in that transition?
Yeah, that feels much more earned, less jarring.
Makes sense.
And the golden sentences?
Honestly, the analysis provided is already full of potentially golden sentences. Don't force them artificially. Trust the content.
So, concrete examples. Maybe just lean into the good stuff that's already there?
Yes, things like Bitcoin is becoming the hurdle rate in finance. That's memorable.
Or that question flagged in the notes. Is the connection between bank lending deregulation and sustained inflation established? That's provocative, makes you think.
Those are way more impactful than trying to shoehorn in a manufactured zinger just to meet a quota.
It comes back to trusting the strength of the material, doesn't it?
It really does. The core conflict here, reserve scarcity, bumping up against institutional crypto demand. That's a powerful story already.
It just needs structure and clarity, not stiffness or forced elements.
Exactly. So, shall we quickly summarize the key actionable takeaways for the listener?
Sounds good? 3 main things, I think.
Okay, first,
First, definitely prioritize editing that runtime. Given the density, shorter is better. Aim for 20-30 minutes max, and really build the whole thing around that reserve scarcity narrative. Make that repo star the star.
right. Second, harmonize the tone. Decide, is it satire or objective analysis? If objective, use humor carefully, target behaviors and concepts, not the core financial mechanics like IORB or the discount rate. Clarity has to win. And finally, trust the material itself to provide the impact. Those conflict points, the SRF test, institutional flows, digital scarcity, they're inherently interesting. Let them generate the memorable moments.
And integrate that commercial break logically, naturally, between sections. Protect that crucial opening hook. Don't break the spell right away.
Yeah, it's really strong, complex material. It just deserves a presentation that's equally clear, focused, and flows naturally. Absolutely. So we encourage the listener to take this feedback, maybe rework the script, focusing particularly on that opening structure and the core narrative flow.
And we'd be happy to take another look. Send it back into the critique when you're ready.